Hey there. I am Brandy A. McPherson. The cool kids call me Bam. You know this already. And you may know me as Priestess Ajay Ayekbe. And I'm super excited to bring to you the next installment of Politics of a Priestess with my amazing co creator here.
Hello, everyone. I am Queen T, also known as Priestess Ifa Pomade Omowari Ogonyomi, the practical priestess. I'm excited for this one because so many people don't know this information.
Yes. Like you heard her say, the practical priestess. This is a practical installment, y'all. This is a practical episode, okay? So, we're going to be talking about the three branches of government and what they do. And I know you may be like, is this 10th grade civics class? Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Let us
yes,
take
it
a
is.
flashback.
Because y'all wasn't listening. Y'all skipped that day or that week, that installment. I don't know what y'all was doing, but y'all wasn't in class. Y'all didn't learn none of this here information in any way, shape, or form. And it bothers me.
So we're going to break it down. We're going to break it down. We're going to clarify some things. That way, we all have a better understanding of what we should be expecting and looking for from our politicians, whether they're local, they're state, or they're federal. Okay. So there's a lot of talk about, right now, the president, the vice president, what they have done or going to do or can do. And I think it's really important to realize and remember the functions that they do govern so that we're not thinking that they have some say so over topics that they don't even have say so over, and to also make sure we're holding the right people accountable. Make sure you know what your city council is supposed to be doing versus your county commissioners and things like that. Okay, so hopping right on in, we don't want you to only concern yourself with the presidential election, even though that's what's getting so much, airtime and so much promotion right now. You got to vote local, okay? And vote local. That's what influences a lot of our day to day experiences, literally the communities that we live in. Okay, y'all? So, knowing that, like we said, just a flashback, it won't even be a long class, but just a little flashback. Remember that we have three branches of government. Each branch has their own lane that they have to stay in and drive in. Okay. So we have the legislative branch, you have the executive branch, and you have the judicial branch.
Buckle up, people. Buckle up. Buckle up.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, right? Okay. So that's the first one. We know it's three branches and we know what they're called. Yes. Now remember what they do, you guys. So the legislative branch creates the laws. They make the laws, okay? The executive branch enforces the laws. They make sure that we actually abide by them. While the judicial branch interprets the laws. They say what is or isn't against the law. Okay? So when we think about the legislative branch of government, those folks who are making those making policies that we have to abide by. On the local level, that looks like your city council. Okay, that's those folks that are passing city ordinances like zoning. That's even your county commissioners, depending on how your particular city, county, and state is set up. Here in the US, we typically have county commissioners as well, and they regulate those things that happen outside of city lines, but within the county lines. Okay, so there are certain things even locally you can't go ask your county commissioner questions about things that have to do within the city limits because they wouldn't be the right point of contact. But we also have the same legislative branch at the state level. That looks like our state legislators who are making state laws. That's the state budget that we always hear people talking about. That's those teacher salaries and things like that are set by the state. That's our state legislator. Then on the federal level, now we're talking about Congress because they're enacting federal laws, federal budgets, like healthcare funding that's always being talked about, right? So we have three branches of government, but we also have three levels of government. And that's really important to remember as we ask you guys to get really clear about the things that matter to you, the policies that matter the most to you and affect your community. Now you need to know who's the person to talk to, right? Do we need to talk to somebody at the local level, the state level, or is it your federal congressman that you need to be talking to? Okay. You see this parallel against all of the branches. So that same thing, the levels happen in the executive branch and the judicial branch as well, right? When you think about the executive branch locally, who's that? Think about it. That looks like your mayor, right? The person that enforces laws in your city locally. But then when we think about the state, we know that territory gets a little bit bigger. It's like, who's the executive director almost, right? We think about business, the top dog that's calling the shots. Who is that for the state? Well, that's your governor. That's who's overseeing your state agencies. Like you talk about your state health department and public health and all those things. That's the person that you would talk to. And then as you continue to go up the levels, the chains, when you talk about the federal level, now we have the president because they're managing national policy. Okay. So the reason that this is highlighted, or that I'm highlighting this, is that you understand that the president is not the person that's going to get sidewalks put in your community. The governor quite possibly will not be the person to help you get sidewalks in your community. So you need to know how to navigate this system so that you make your informed decisions, right? So one of the things that you have decided for yourself is super important is, though, let's use those sidewalks because you want, accessible mobility for everybody. You want people to be able to walk the streets or travel the streets, and you want it to be accessible. So you know that sidewalks are a really big deal. So now you know that it's super important for you to tune into your local elections, find out what those candidates feel, and find the candidate that cares about sidewalks just as much as you do, because it's at the local level that change is going to be made. Okay? So don't forget the judicial branch. Even we know that locally, that's your municipal courts. That's everybody that's going to handle your local speeding ticket. Okay, that's local. At the state level, you have the state Supreme Court, which is able to hear cases at a state level. And we've all heard things about the Supreme Court. We know that is the federal court, that is the law of the land. It interprets the actual Constitution. So if you were tuned into an episode before this, I think it was the last episode where we actually discussed me over here having these wild plans about, hey, we need to take this thing, this something that happened might have been unconstitutional. Now, if I feel like something is unconstitutional, it will do me absolutely no good to go down to the municipal court here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, because there's absolutely nothing that they can do for me. But if that's a concern that I have, I know that that's one that needs to be taken up at the federal level with the Supreme Court. Okay. A lot of times, like I said, kind of segueing into this, we see folks that place responsibility and blame on the wrong branch of government. And they wonder why their words and their petitions and their protests seem to keep going unheard. It's because they're hollering at the wrong person. Okay. So we want you to understand the three branches of government and how they work together. We talk about checks and balances. I know y'all remember that phrase from 10th grade civics and economics too. And that's why it's like that. So the idea is that hopefully somebody in one of the other branches could catch a slip or catch a gap that might be missing that was, passed on by one of the other branches. So they work intertwined together. All right. And then we just have to, for the sake of knowledge, knowing where to place, certain things, we got to give special mention to some agencies out there. Because sometimes I think we forget about them too, or they get thrown under the bus or forgot about. But there are certain agencies that are funded by government entities, but they're not managed by government entities, right?
Yeah.
So if you, however you feel about that, we can have another conversation about that one. But things,
IRS.
that's one. There we go. Y'all heard her. No,
People don't know that the IRS is not the Fed. Those are two different things.
Good point. Okay. See, y'all? See? Say even so now you got like the DOT, Department of Transportation. Sometimes we were thinking, that's managed by the government, but it's not. It's funded but not managed. Environmental Protection Agency, all of those folks. So they also OSHA, CDC. Yes. All these other entities that do have decision-making responsibility, they have some say-so in the things we would like to see change in. So we have to hold them accountable as well and not just continue to pass the buck. All right. So yeah, y'all, that's the three branches of government in a nutshell. And again, the reason why I think it's important that we highlight it is so that we understand who to hold accountable, what doors we should be knocking on, and not letting anybody get a pass for stuff that they should actually be doing. What you think, Egbe?
So I'm gonna go a little deeper. Okay,
go ahead, girl.
I'm gonna get a little bit more specific. Okay, because I feel like people just really don't. I think specifically with the president, regardless of who the president is, people really don't understand the capabilities of the president. They don't actually understand the capabilities of Congress, and they do not know what the justices of the Supreme Court actually do. Like they don't know what is it that these people do. So again, the legislative branch makes the law, the executive branch enforces the law, and the judicial branch interprets the law. Okay, so the president can veto legislation created by Congress. That is a thing that the president can do. He or she also nominates heads of federal agencies and high court appointees. The executive branch conducts diplomacy with other nations, and the president has the power to negotiate and sign treaties, which must be ratified by 2/3 of the Senate. So what that means is that the president's policies don't just happen. They still have to be approved by 2/3 of the Senate as it relates to treaties. Okay, as it relates to treaties, not everything. Treaties get approved by the Senate. The president can issue executive orders which direct executive officers or clarify and help implement existing laws. So people always talk about executive orders of the president and sometimes the vice president as it relates to national disasters. Okay, that's because that is within the president's ability to do. They can issue an executive order that sends FEMA to North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina. Is Asheville North Carolina or South?
Yeah, North Carolina.
So there, the VP and or the president, one of them can do that if it is known that that specific area is suffering and there's not been enough aid to this point. Does that mean they're going to do it for every single city? No, because FEMA doesn't have those type of resources. FEMA can't be everywhere all the time for everybody. And especially if you've been following last, hurricane season, it was really rough for certain areas. So they still have to act within the parameters of their ability to act. So yes, it would be great to have FEMA in every city that was affected by a hurricane, but it's not possible. Okay? So the president can direct them to move resources temporarily to help another area, but that doesn't mean that they should in every case. Okay? So don't be mad every time the president don't send somebody somewhere, because We don't truly know everything that's going on in the public. We do not. The president gets briefed on things. The vice president gets briefed on things. There are other issues in our nation that don't make it to the national news for us to even know about. So we have to keep that in mind when we're like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? We don't know what's actually happening behind closed doors as to why they can't do certain things, but then also certain things just aren't in their ability. Okay? So moving on. Congress confirms or rejects the president's nominees. It can also remove the president from office in exceptional circumstances. The legislative branch is made up of the House and Senate, known collectively as the Congress. Among other powers, the legislative branch makes all laws, declares war, regulates interstate and foreign commerce, and controls taxing and spending policies. So, if the president, regardless of who the president is, has this new tax bill that they want to introduce and implement to America, Congress has to approve that. It doesn't matter how great of an idea it is. If Congress doesn't say yes, it's not happening. Period. Okay? Senators represent their entire states, but members of the House represent individual districts. The number of districts in each state is determined by the state's population. Each state has a minimum of one representative in Congress. The Senate has the sole power to confirm those of the president's appointments that require consent, and to provide advice and consent to ratify treaties. There are, however, two exceptions to this rule. The House must also approve appointments to the vice presidency and any treaty that involves foreign trade. Only the House can initiate tax and revenue-related legislation, and only the Senate can draft legislation related to presidential nominations and treaties. So, even within Congress, which is the legislative branch, there are still separations to keep them from having complete power as it relates to that process. So, you got a new wrinkle in your brain. And then finally, the justices of the Supreme Court, nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, can overturn unconstitutional laws. The judicial branch decides the constitutionality, that's a word, of federal laws and resolves other disputes about federal laws. However, judges depend on our government's executive branch to enforce court decisions. Courts decide what really happened and what should be done about it. Okay, so that was a little bit more in depth so that you really get an idea as to what is truly happening. So the president cannot declare war. Just so that we're clear, which is great, depending upon who our president is. However, the problem is they can nominate people depending upon who has the majority in the House, who has the majority in the Senate, and this goes back to our policy over party conversation. Unfortunately, it's mostly about party, and most people vote in the way that their party is typically done. So if we have a Republican president, most Republicans will vote for whatever the president puts up there because of the R. Same thing with the Democrats. They will typically say, oh, we have a Democratic president, we're Democratic, so we're going to do whatever the president wants us to do. Now, in some cases, this is harmless. In a lot of cases, this is a harmless thing to do. But there are cases where it's absolutely detrimental to the future. Say, for instance, the fact that the former president, Orange Daddy, had the ability, I think it was 3 Supreme Court justices he was able to appoint because they aged out of the process. They were older, one died. I read somewhere that President Obama asked RBG, asked her to retire during his term so that he can appoint her replacement. She didn't. She stayed, but she died during Orange Daddy's presidency. which means because these are life appointments, so they have to retire or die. There is no other option. Like have you ever heard of a judge being removed? I'll wait. Find one, please. Find one and put it in the comments. If you found a case where a Supreme Court justice in recent history was removed from that station, find it, please. I'll wait. I'll be with my Cat Williams. Don't worry. I'll wait. But yeah, so they have to pass away or retire. She decided not to retire. She ended up passing away. Trump was able to replace her. And there were 2 others that Trump was also able to replace. That is how we got into the situation now where Roe v. Wade is overturned. Because he put people in place that would vote the way that he wanted them to vote. Or with the agenda of the party. Okay? So now this is what we're left with. So now we have to go back and fix it. So this is how these decisions affect the long game, because these people will be in office in most cases for at least 10 to 20 years. At least, depending upon how old they are. At least 10 to 20 years, we will be dealing with the appointments of Orange Daddy. Because one of them didn't take the opportunity to leave when she probably could have. And it may have saved Roe v. Wade. So these are things we need to think about, y'all. Priestess.
For sure. That just leads. So all of that, 3 snaps and a yes. I guess it gives me just 2 like food for thought things to leave folks with. One just being a highlight that I think we have said on every single episode is that I think, like you said, it goes back to policy over party, that it is important, and voting the whole ballot. We'll get to that one. We'll get to that one soon, because like Priestess said, it is the Congress that has to approve said laws. It is the Congress that is able to make the declaration. Like it's so much. I guess this is the food for thought for those people that get really caught up in the presidential election. That's what I'm getting at. Or food for thought for people that don't see the value in voting local or voting the entire ballot. The media is making really big this presidential race, but it's these other guys that's really pushing the needle, that's moving the needle. And so just like we heard, you need Congress to move the way you want them to move. Yeah, the president might have to initiate something, but we still need Congress to move a certain way too. So you have to be intentional about putting those people in place. And then this one is more so grassroots. This is really a grassroots question for real. And I hope to expand on this a little bit later, but why do we give all of the responsibility for disaster relief to the federal government? It's a real question that I want to talk more about later. Because like we said, FEMA, FEMA's one of those organizations, like we said, that is managed by FEMA, is managed by them. They can't do but so much. But what is stopping us from talking to our state legislators and saying we need to have a disaster relief plan in place? We know that they're able to, send out the National Guard for certain things. That's like the state's first line of defense. But what other policies, protocols, ideas, plans, projects do we have for immediate relief for our state? And then I encourage us to go say the same exact thing to our county officials, because they make the budgets. Like, yeah, there's a template. We know they got to talk about health, but they make the budgets. And if we want to see a budget line item for disaster relief, democracy tells me I can have it.
And really, that's like a Department of Public Health type situation. Like if I'm really thinking about it, like as you were talking, I'm like, first of all, damn it, I've never thought about that. So you caught me slipping on that, because I never thought about that. And then yes, that's like a Department of Health type of thing. Like, what are we doing locally, especially in areas where it's prone to national disaster? If you lived in Tornado Alley, there should be some type of state funded, local funded type of programs that help you rebuild after those types of things. If you live in Hurricane City, you know what I'm saying? There should be some things, because we can't wait for the federal government to mobilize people. We shouldn't have to. That's not really what the federal government is for. They are an assist. They are an addition to. This is like, we have the extra resources. We will send in the National Guard. FEMA isn't busy right now, so we'll move FEMA, this section of FEMA, over here to help. But they can't do all of it, and we shouldn't. Again, this goes back to a very conservative policy, a very Republican thing, is having these things set up at a local level and letting the federal government step in when necessary. But it shouldn't always be necessary. We shouldn't be mad that the president couldn't deploy FEMA or didn't deploy FEMA in a certain amount of time. What was that governor doing?
Yes, ma'am.
What was that mayor doing? Mm-hmm. Especially, again, in places where they are prone to natural disasters. DeSantis can get a whole elbow to the face. Okay? I don't like that man. For several reasons that we're not going to talk about right now. But those types of situations, like, they should be, and I did hear that he was actually on the ground and he was helping, and so I good on him for doing that, where he was actually in a neighborhood. So reason why he didn't answer Blackface Body's call is because he was actually on the ground. Okay, fine, great. However, for other reasons, he can get that whole elbow to the face. But anyway, look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. just look up the policies of DeSantis, the governor of Florida, and have a time with that. And if you live in Florida and you don't know what I'm talking about, that's your problem. That's your problem. Because you should already know what I'm talking about if you live in Florida and you Black and you don't, baby, there's so many Black people in Florida. There's so many Hispanic people in Florida. So many Latino people in Florida. Y'all should be able to override all them people that think that he has good ideas and get you a new governor who's going to actually protect you. Let me say it like that, okay? But again,
the vote matters.
The vote matters.
Your vote counts. It really
counts. Your vote counts. And I know that they try to disenfranchise a lot of communities that are not white, but baby, and we'll talk about that in the next one. We're going to talk about some voter laws, okay? Some laws, the restrictions, what you need to do, how you need to register. Baby, I'm gonna go down the list, okay? And this is from the government website. I'm gonna give y'all the government website so y'all can see this, okay? Y'all, we gotta do better. We have to do better. We really have to start paying attention to these things, because there's no reason why y'all shouldn't know that the president can't just go declare war. Or that you don't know that the president just can't enact everything that they think of. We don't have generals like Hitler here.
And we hoping to not have them, because that is the beauty of democracy. And if even nonpartisanly, I think we both would like to see democracy stand.
Yes, very much so. I am against the genocide of all people, regardless of the people's religion or the way they look or the things that they put on their dinner table. I don't care. Genocide is never okay in any way, shape, or form. And we should really look into there's a difference between letting other countries handle their own shit and supporting genocide. Those are two different things. And so we have to be very careful with the language that we're using when it comes to the conflict in the Middle East, because we don't know everything. We don't know everything. There were a lot of lies that were posted out. And so there's a lot of back and forth about what was going on. But then also there's a long history there, over 70 years of history. And in some cases, we're talking about thousands of years of history. This isn't something that just happened in October of last year, okay? It didn't just pop up like, bombs. That's not how it happened. Oh, we're kidnapping people. No, that's not how it happened. And so we need to make sure that we are also educating ourselves about issues that have nothing to do with our country, because our country has to sometimes step in and have these conversations with other countries. And that again goes back to what I said about the president, how they can negotiate certain things, right? They can negotiate all they want, but the president of the United States can't make nobody do nothing in another country. Okay? We are an example, right? We are a voice of, we're supposed to be a voice of reason, right? Because anything that happens over there happens over here. So we don't care about the children that are dying. We don't care about the people that are displaced and homeless there, because we don't even care about the ones here. We're not paying attention to them. And so we have to do better. And understanding how you fit in and where to go to get these things changed, who actually is involved in changing them, is a big part of that. Okay? So please learn you something today.
And I hope you did. Okay? So that's it. If you got any questions, any feedback, anything that you did learn or want to hear some more about, drop it in the comment section so that we know. And we are excited to catch you on the next episode.
Peace.